Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Day 2 Lives. I am Heather Cameron, one of your co-hosts, and this is Tracy, my sidekick, my other co-host. Either way. And first of all, say hi in the comments. Let us know you're here. I don't see anything yet, but I do see some people watching. Our site is back up. So we apologize for our site going down, but you guys were way too enthusiastic this morning and you took the site down. It's back up. Fingers crossed. We did a little tweaking, increased our capacity, and we should not go down again, but I'm not going to say that and guarantee it. I extended the play period so you can watch the videos for Day 2 until noon on Saturday. So we gave you 2 extra hours, even though we're down for an hour. So do that. But I'm not seeing any comments. So somebody let me know if you're there. I see eyes.
We don't want that tech issue now.
I see 17 people watching us, so somebody's there.
So
I'm sure somebody's there.
It's all good.
But it's an there we go. Hello, thank you.
We go.
So before we introduce you to Molly, we just want to thank our sponsor for today, and our sponsor is, I'm passing it on to Tracy.
The good old Whimsy Stamps. And I'll always say they have some fun, just, I don't know, really lively kind of stamps. And I, of course, still have the same samples because, but just things like this and it's some of them will have a great sense of humor and other ones are, I don't want to say like serious, but just, your regular stamps that you need each day, your happy birthdays and your so sorry, sincere stamps. But they have great new lines of pirates, which is often a subject or a theme that people all of a sudden ask for pirates. And you're like, I don't have anything. Well, Whimsy Stamps does now too. So,
and they have they have menopausal stamps, and they also
sure do.
One of the ones that you
Cranky old men stamps. How about that? I don't usually say that. I don't know why, but they have very different product, and yes, you should check them out. And again, some of their dies, I find, like some of the shapes of may not be a regular rectangle. It'll be a curve or something like that, and that's very different too. Like they're just your standalone dies. They're great and very easy to use in all your machines as well. So there you go.
So thank you, Whimsy Stamps, for being here, for being one of our sponsors. We very much appreciate that. And I'm going to flip this around and go here. There we go. So Molly, welcome and thank you for joining us. Molly's new to our summit this year, so it's so exciting to bring in new people and bring new things to you. So for our first question, like I said, my brain is getting back on and we're covering this. Is where in the world are you? That's the easiest question we ask.
Well, I want to say thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun putting the presentation together. So I hope everybody enjoys it. I am based out of Minnesota, so the Twin Cities area. So I'm in a small suburb of the Twin Cities.
Excellent. And are you a card maker, scrapbooker, paper crafter, mixed media artist? What is your passion?
All of the above. I really started as a scrapbooker. Years ago, I started working at a scrapbook store when I was just out of college. It was one of the first scrapbook stores in Minnesota. Started working there, and that's when I actually started scrapbooking. And then I've just had some form of business. So I worked there, and then I had a line of templates. I decided to just do more wholesale and had a line of templates. And then I started hosting crops with friends, and it just kind of grew. And then so now I have an online business, and then I also do, presentations like this, and I have a website that has more tutorials and techniques on it.
Excellent.
So, did that answer your question?
No, that's actually you answered 2 questions, which is great. Do you is your online business and your tutorial page the same, or are they 2 different?
They're separate. Actually, I have a retail website, and then my tutorial site actually just kind of blew up and exploded the other week. So it's actually being rebuilt. Okay. So it's like kind of like hanging on to by a thread. And so actually that's kind of new. I have not shared that with a lot of people, but I'm like actually rebranding. So what you'll see on the summit is Molly Quach Creates. In a couple of weeks, it'll be Molly Quach Creative, and I'll have a whole new site, and I'm really excited about it. So
wow. Good
So
for
yeah,
you.
keep an eye out for that.
Definitely. That's cool. It's always interesting to see how people take their businesses and do that and keep it going. So, and being entrepreneurial in this space is always an interesting space to be in.
Yes, and it's just fun that you can just take it in whatever direction. Like, I started with more of the craft supply, and then I'm like, but I like having the blog to just kind of support it and to just show off the techniques. Like, because I feel like on the one side it has to be, stuff that I'm selling, but it's like crafting is so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And
So, because you mentioned tutorials, techniques there a couple times now. So I don't know, what is the more, either what do you like to show more of the techniques that you like, or what is the demand? Like, what are people asking about? And you're like, okay, I've got to teach you how to do this.
I've seen a lot more demand for card making than scrapbooking. People like the scrapbook ideas. It's kind of weird because it's like, if it's scrapbookers, they want like the idea and the sketches, but card makers want more of the techniques of like, how do you ink blend and stenciling and more of the products to use. Because scrapbookers, it's kind of like, show me the sketch and I'll recreate the layout or go from there. But with card makers, I see card makers doing more techniques, but I think it's easier because you have that smaller canvas of the card.
Okay.
It's hard to take a stencil and do that on a layout, like you can do sections of it. But yeah, I see more with the techniques and a lot with ink blending and a lot with shaker cards.
Yes.
That has been a lot of fun. So that's kind of been, I started doing conventions. And so I started doing conventions last year. And so I started a line of shaker pieces and shaker cards. So it's kind of, that is what has been my main kind of focus lately, has been with the shaker cards.
Which are popular, as we know. And I mean, we call ourselves the Scrapbooking Fun Summit, but we have equally card makers and scrapbookers. And as we always say, you can learn something from one of the other modalities and apply it to your own. So,
yep. And then the presentation I did had the faux shaker. So that's a lot thinner profile. So it's easier to go on a scrapbook layout. So then you're not adding the bulk.
Yes.
And that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. We have another question, which we're fascinated by the answers we're getting for this. It was a question that I dreamed up 5 minutes before we started doing these. But what is one of the hardest things you had to conquer in your paper crafting adventure?
Wait, what was hardest things I've had to?
You're getting feedback again, Tracy, so you might want to mute if you're not talking. What's one of the hardest things that you've had to conquer in your paper crafting journey?
I think it can just be, I think sometimes people try to make things harder than they are. And it's just to break it down and realize that, like when I was doing ink blending, I was like so concerned about having like the perfect paper and getting the perfect blend. And then you realize that it's really not about the perfect supplies. It's just kind of having fun with it. Using what you have. There are a few things like, if you're ink blending that you want, a smooth cardstock, and but as you just try out different ones, you're going to find the ones that you like. But I used to make notes of like, I'd be watching people, I'd be like, oh, they mentioned this one. I've got to write that one down. I've got to try this one. I've got to try this one. And all of a sudden I had so many papers and I'm like, I don't even know which is which.
Our very first speaker, her thing to conquer was buying too many papers. So there you go. But it's been interesting because we have things of confidence, of finding our own style, of, conquering the buying the too much paper kind of thing. But this is a great one as well, which is having to feel like you have to use all the right things and yet you don't. So
it's just, and then I'm also, I was recently diagnosed with ADHD, and part of that is like the overthinking. And I'm like, oh, that totally makes sense. And I'm like, because I can totally overthink anything. And now I'm just like, okay, just got to stop and just do it. Just, create something. Yeah. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just create something.
And that's awesome. Because I mean, that's the full fun about crafting, right? Is to create and do that. So,
you kind of get hung up in the details and you forget about having the fun about part of it.
Does anybody else who's listening have that problem? just perfectionism, get hung up in the details, think you need to have all the exact specifications that someone says. We'll see. It takes always a minute or so delay in this.
Yeah.
While we're waiting, can you tell people about the project you did today? Because they may or may not have had a chance to watch the video.
Yeah, so I did this layout. So you get the, so I made it with the Cricut. So you do get the file for the Cricut, but this part is actually like a little, I want to say baggy, but it has a sealable flap. So you can really use just about any type of, you know, sometimes you get like the dies and you're like, oh, this packaging is perfect, or it's like such nice packaging. You can turn that into a shaker. The thing is, you want to cut the panel, whatever piece of paper you want to go in there, slightly smaller than the overall bag size, and then you fill it up with some shaker pieces. And then I just kind of did a little border along the bottom edge. But that way you can put it on a scrapbook layout and it doesn't have much bulk. Now, the one thing I would say, this one does have, I do have some gem pieces in there along with some of the, they're just more of like a clay piece. I would kind of be careful with like getting too many of the gem pieces in there because I think that might dent photos that would be on the adjoining page. But that same technique you can use on a card. So this is the same baggie, but it's on a card and matted. And then I just put a piece of white cardstock in there, and the saying is on the white cardstock, but then this little strip is on the front. So it's a technique that you can use for both scrapbooking and card making.
Awesome. Tracy's on mute, so I don't know if she has a question or not.
No, I'm trying to, you know, every now and then I'm going to sneak in. Keep going.
Unfortunately, something's going on with Tracy's computer and it causes feedback. So it's like, we have a question from, what kind of things can you use for shaker items?
I use gems. I use glitter. I try to use more of like the chunkier glitter. I have a line called Stardust, which is shaker pieces. So that is just packs of shaker. They're actually like polymer clay pieces. And so these are just fun because they're actually like just like slices. They're really small or thin.
So those would be good for your scrapbooking page then.
So those would be good. Yeah. And I don't, you know, the thing with scrapbooking is, you know, well, it's still like the whole acid free because you don't want to like, you know, damage your photos. But as long as the pieces are contained like in the packaging and not touching your photos, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I know everybody has their own kind of comfort level when it comes to scrapbooking with like what they're going to put on their page. But I don't have a problem with things that are like contained in the package or like in the shaker. So that's why I like to use them on the page because it's all contained. What else do you use? Oh, the other thing is just to die cut small pieces of paper. If you have like some small dies, I've seen some dies now that have just like small, like Lawn Fawn came out with one. And I want to say that there's another company. I think Lawn Fawn had one out around Christmas time where it was just small shapes that you could just die cut out of paper. So it's a great way of using up your scrap paper. And then that also isn't going to add much bulk.
Good answer. Another question we have is, how and where do you find inspiration? Well, Pinterest. I do look on Pinterest a lot. I will just like Google, you know, a lot of the manufacturers have a lot of great ideas, like when they come out with like their cards or with the new die and stamp lines. And so I usually look to see what their design team makes and then just kind of like springboard off of it. Sometimes I've even started by just recreating a design that I really like, and it turns out nothing like that design. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just the whole like scrap lifting where you just start off with something and just based on the supplies you have, it just takes it in another direction. But I do get a lot of inspiration from other people, other designers. And sometimes it's just looking at the supplies you have and just kind of like, I have played around with like, I'll take dies and just kind of play around with them to see some type of interesting pattern
or how they how you can get them to fit together. So sometimes I will just play around with the, like I said, just like the dies without even cutting paper. Or what I've started doing lately is just cutting a lot of doing a lot of die cuts out of white paper and then inking them, because then I can just play around with them and I'm not committed to a color. And then I just take my ink and ink the shapes once I'm ready to commit to the design.
That's great. We had a presenter yesterday who did exactly that. That was her presentation, is use white paper and then ink them up and do things and do multimedia on them, mix media on them. Sorry, I can't speak. Were you going to say something, Tracy? I'm sorry.
No, don't worry. If I am, I'm going to unmute me.
Okay. Do you ever use card designs to create a scrapbook page?
Yes, I do go back and forth between, like, if I find a really cute design, either on a scrapbook layout, I will recreate it in like, smaller proportions on a card, and same thing. And that is actually one of the things that I am working on the Molly Quach / Molly Q Creative site, is having a monthly newsletter that will take basically both a layout design and transfer it to a card design, so that it can encompass both if you're both a scrapbooker and card maker. I know I have customers that only scrapbook, and I have customers that only make cards, and some that do both. And so I'm like, that's a kind of like, a way of like mixing it between both of them. But yeah, I definitely take designs that were meant for scrapbooking and use them for cards, and vice versa.
Yeah. And we do have presentations in the past, and I think this time as well, kind of show that as well, because it's like techniques can be used anywhere. Mm-hmm. Tracy taught me that, so there you go. What is the biggest size you scrapbooked on? A 12 by 12 or bigger?
12 by 12 is the biggest size. Well, unless you count, so I have 2 kids, and they're both, like, I still call them, they're both my babies. They're 20 and 24, and they both still live at home. And I kind of thought that this was kind of a universal thing, but apparently not. But in Minnesota, when you graduate, we make these boards that have like all these pictures on it. And I don't know whether that's as common for all the graduations or not. But anyway, so I have taken a giant sheet of foam core and literally created a giant scrapbook page on it. So I guess that would be the biggest thing.
That's a fun. No, I've never heard of that.
Now I'm curious. So how giant of a sheet of foam core? And I'll tell you, because I used to sell sheets, not in the scrapbooking world, of 4 feet by 8 feet. So how big?
It wasn't that big. It was probably maybe like 1.5 feet by 3 feet. I still have it in the in my crawl space, because then I had to go in there to grab something the other day, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then I flip it over. I'm like, oh yeah, for my son, because my daughter's older, my son's graduation. I just replaced the heading, so it was a little bit more masculine. It wasn't as cursive-y. And then the pictures that just had my daughter, I plastered over pictures of my son.
There you go.
Reuse is a good thing.
Yes.
What do you do with all the pages you make? If you put them in books, how many pages do you put in the book?
I do put them in albums. I do have a stack that need to go in albums that some of them I actually need to figure out the dates of them. I do not scrapbook in order. So I will scrapbook, it might be, I probably still have some baby pictures to scrapbook of my kids. And so it's just like whatever I feel inspired to scrapbook, I will create the page. But when I put them in the book, I put them in order. But if you look through my books, you will see that my kids do not have birthdays for several years. And it looks like we did not celebrate Christmas or something like that, So if you actually look closely at them, but they are put in chronological order in the books. So yes, ultimately all of my pages do go into albums. I did start with, so my daughter has a set of albums, and my son, and I did also start a family album, and I have honestly stopped the family album just because I was kind of like, I'm doing some layouts 3 times. And then I was like, what is going to ultimately happen with the family album? I'm like, if both kids have their albums, but it's funny as family dynamics change and as you get older, because now my husband and I are doing more things, just the 2 of us without the kids. And so now I'm doing more layouts that are just us 2. So I guess I've kind of gone back to the family album. And I've also started doing more mini albums for like trips. And so if it's something that's more like a lot of photos, but more of like a smaller time frame, like a vacation, or we went on a cruise a couple of years ago, then I will do a mini album. I might do like a 2 or 4 page layout in the album, but then create a mini album for it. And as far as how many layouts I put in a book, it just kind of depends. Like I don't want them overcrowded. I try not so that I try to keep it so that the pages, the covers are straight. You know what I mean? So they're not like, you don't have to push them in when you put them on the bookshelf. So it just kind of depends. I do all 3-ring binder albums now. So I find it's easier to change up the pages and
which makes sense. So you need to call your own album your Empty Nester album, or your Freedom Life album, or whatever works for your name.
Yeah.
You could have fun decorating your Empty Nester album. See, there you go.
Yep.
You could have fun. Shelley says that we're going back to what we talked about a long time ago, but Shelley says Fiskars has small die cuts for punches.
Yep. Dies are another good thing that you can use for punches for shaker filler. Yep.
Question: when trying to decide between doing a scrapbook or a folio based on the number of photos you have, how do you decide?
I guess it kind of depends upon. I have not honestly done like an album. I take that back. I have a Disney album, and it's the album that my husband says we do not show people because there's so many, it was like taking a picture of everything at Disney and there's so many pages in it. He's like, people can just see the abbreviated version of the Disney album, which is the pages that go in the book. If it's something that's like really special, like the first time we took our kids to Disney and, I just have an overwhelming number of photos, I did create a separate album of that. For our cruise, I do have a lot of photos, but that went in a folio. I also did a folio of, I guess when I'm making a decision, it kind of depends upon who is it for, who is going to see it. Like, for instance, my son is a Boy Scout. He's actually, I'm a proud mom of an Eagle Scout. So got to mention that whenever I can. And so he does have an album of all of his Boy Scout activities, but then for his Eagle, for the Eagle Court of Honor, I had made up a folio that just kind of did highlights of it. So I think a folio is great to just kind of have setting out like, and it's just kind of more of like a highlight of the event. You pick your best pictures, you pick the best moments from it.
Makes sense.
But if you wanted to do more of like an in-depth, like showcasing every day we at Disney, yay, Connie, Eagle, another Eagle mom. You have to get credit where you can, man. That was hard.
You do. Someone said the graduation board is done in other states too, so there you go.
Okay.
Sandy's one of our scrapbooking circle members, but she once used 2 poster boards to make 2 big pages and made a scrapbook page for a Halloween costume. Well, that's kind of cool.
Idea too.
To be a scrapbook page.
Yeah, hang on. Was that like, Sandy, I'm curious, was that a costume of a scrapbook?
Yeah, she was a scrapbook page as her costume. Oh, you've just turned Tracy onto what she's going to do for Halloween next. There you go. That is kind of cool. You know what you can make with cups? I actually had a friend who used paper to make himself a toothpaste tube. He had a hard time sitting down. That was his one problem. His wife was the toothbrush and he was the tube. Then I'm like, how do you sit down? But he had fun with it.
That's a cute idea.
He ended up wearing white pants and then do it like so he could sit down. But yeah, he was a toothpaste tube. You can do a lot of things with paper, but Sandy, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Tracy likes that one, I can tell. What do you do? Yes, it was my costume. I wore it to a Halloween parade. Very cool, Sandy. I would like to see a picture of that. So Sandy, you're now going to be challenged to post that and share a picture of that one.
because you've
If
got
you have one.
a picture of a scrapbook page.
I was going to say Sandy scrapbooks and does card making, so she may actually have it in a scrapbook page of a scrapbook. So there you go.
Yeah.
It's one inside of another. Do you find time to craft for yourself?
No, and that's probably why I don't do as much scrapbooking anymore. But in a way I do, because now I'm using the product to make samples, which then I then use myself. So yeah, like, so if I do a scrapbook page, like I have a layout, one of the new 49 a market kits, and now I just need to put the layout together, and I'm like, oh, so it's kind of like I kind of get double duty out of it though. Like I get to create the sample and then I get to use it. So like when I do scrapbook, like I said, this weekend I'm putting together I have some 49 a market product from the Vicky Boudin line, and I'm like, it's been sitting around, and I'm like, this weekend I'm putting together that layout. And so I have the photos and everything to it. So then I get to showcase it and show everybody. I did have one of my customers did ask me, because I have done local crops in Minnesota for like 20 years. And so I've had some customers that have been with me like a long time. And one of my customers asked me, they're like, do your kids mind being in the pictures and being like shown off? And I'm like, I never asked them. It was just part of life in our household.
I was going to say, Tracy, does your kid mind being in the pictures and showing off?
May depend in the picture. I mean, she didn't, of course, she went through the years of like, no way kind of thing. And then it was like, oh, Mom, here's a picture, scrapbook it kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, you do like it.
Now Tracy's tend to be her daughter and her cat. So, you have that too at the same time, because her daughter is 30 now. There you go. It's like, yeah. So I just lost my train of thought. See, that happens. What happens when you're crafting and you're doing these and especially when you're doing what you're going to do this weekend and you're bringing stuff together and you make an oops? What do? You keep going? Does your oops become your inspiration, or do you start over? What do you do when you make an oops?
With scrapbooking, I don't start over. I really don't. With scrapbooking, I try to find a way to fix it or incorporate it.
Mm-hmm.
It could be putting like an embellishment over it or rearranging photos or something, but I don't start over. I have looked through some of layouts from my early days, and I haven't like thrown any of them out like and gotten rid of them. I may do like a few other embellishments or make a few changes to them, but I really don't go back and fix things often. And if I make a mistake, and now with card making, it's kind of funny because it used to take me forever to create a card and it's the same thing with scrapbooking, because it's like that perfectionistic mind mode set.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has to be perfect. It has to be, exactly like, do I move it over half an inch or up, or, is it positioned correctly? And now I've kind of, especially with card making, been like, okay, that can be my sample. Mm-hmm. And then I might create something, if I use like the wrong color combination, or I don't know, if something happens to it, I'll still finish it, but then I might make another one that I use then as the sample. It's like, or you do something that's like, oh, I cut that too small, or, you make some type of mistake on it and you don't like it as much as you had envisioned it to be. I'm like, okay, well, I'll still finish it because that's still a card that somebody will like and enjoy. Mm-hmm. But then I might redo it as, the alternative way that I was thinking of it.
Right. Makes sense. So you're mentioning you're going to make something this weekend with a product so you can showcase the product. Mm-hmm. Do you ever have a challenge where you're making something that the product isn't necessarily what you would choose to use, and you have to make something to demonstrate or to show?
Honestly, I try not to. My company started small and it started in my house. And so I try to pick product that I like. And I know that there are some things that you have to kind of like, I always say sometimes like I'm a really bad business person, because when I started like the supply side of it, I was like, well, if I don't sell it, I can use it. But I know you do need to, brought into other tastes too. I guess there have been a few layouts that I haven't really, I guess like the final result, but I try to use product that I like. And honestly, there have been some products that I haven't been overly thrilled with. Some companies would come out with like a line that you're not overly thrilled with. And once you start playing with it, it kind of grows on you.
That's good. That's a good question. It's kind of, there's two sides to what you just said, which is that you get to choose what you have in your shop.
Yeah.
Right? Demand, maybe you'll bring something in, and then sometimes you start to love something that you thought, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. And it kind of inspires you. So,
yeah. And sometimes you just got to, play around with it. And then I know it's always like the challenge between like, buying new product. It's like, do you, because you fall in love with certain things, and then it's like, but you also need to have more of that broader base. And I think that's one of the things I love about card making is it's more of a scrapbooking seems like it's a permanent thing. It's going in your album. It's going to last forever. And a card is just kind of like a temporary, you send it to somebody, you make it, you're happy, you're, proud of the card. You really like it, but it's more temporary. If that makes sense.
It does.
Okay. Huh. Because if you send it, then you don't have your hand, like you don't see it, you mean, all the time? It's like you forget going, oh, okay, I did that goof up. Who cares? It's gone, right?
Yeah. And then actually, if I did not do this for the store, I did buy a pack of cards. It was like a card kit. And it really wasn't my style, but I bought it to kind of see if I liked it enough. And I ended up, but I knew it was my mom's style. So I think it made up like 20 cards, and I gave them to my mom so that she could send them out for her Christmas cards. And she loved them. And I got comments from people. So it's like, once you try something, it appeals to different people.
So Leslie wrote a card you release into the world, which is kind of what you're saying, right? You send it out to the world and you release it, which is...
You're going to, it's going to make whoever gets it is going to smile, and they're not going to, you kind of make a card based on the recipient too, though, like on their style. Like I bought this card kit. It wasn't my style, but I knew that my mom would really like it. And so you kind of, base it on what the recipient is going to like too. So you kind of have to look at their style. And
it's interesting too, as we've been in this world, and I'm sure you've experienced this with your longevity in this world, is that some people find card making intimidating and some people find scrapbooking intimidating, and it's vice versa. Or they started in one and they're like just trying the other, or they've never used a cutting machine and their box is still on the shelf, Tracy, and they have one and they haven't pulled it out of the box. I had to pull that in. I haven't said that yet today. It's an ongoing thing with Tracy. She's had a Cricut in a box on the shelf. But we see a lot of people. We hear a lot of people in our membership. So we run a scrapbooking.
I'm watching my volume. You can see my little button here, on the volume on the computer. So can't talk now.
You can't talk now. You can't justify it. But we have a lot of people who have bought a Cricut or a Silhouette and it's on the shelf and plugged in, but they haven't done it.
Oh yeah, I've had people like that too. It's like they'll buy the supplies and then they don't open it up. And I've had people buy supplies twice because they forgot they bought it the first time.
Tracy's nodding. Yep, she's had that too.
Yep.
I think we're all guilty of that. But I also hear a lot of people buy beautiful paper and they don't want to use it.
Yes. I have a friend who just wanted to frame it and put it on the wall.
Do you ever frame your scrapbooking pages and put them up?
I have had some bigger, like 12 by 12 clipboards. And so I did used to have that in the family room where I had them displayed. No, I do have a basket in my family room of like mini albums. Or it's actually in our living room of like just mini albums that you can just sit down and, look through.
Neat idea. And I think it's MK, who was a speaker yesterday, who has one in her hallway that she seasonally changes. So
that was my intention, but I never get around to seasonally changing it.
Yes, it takes effort to seasonally change. Some people are really good at that. I would not be one of them either.
No.
Excellent. Any other questions for Molly in the comments? Anybody, our site was down, so they may not have all seen it. If they're VIPs, they may have seen it. If they're not, they're still going to see your presentation. Anybody inspired to put a shaker on their shake? We have a lot of shakers this time around. Shakers in their scrapbooking pages.
One thing, if you don't mind me saying this, if you have a Cricut, and when you're on my site, I do have, for shakers, I have this SVG vault. So it has a bunch of different shaker shapes for creating shaker cards. So if you're intimidated by shaker cards and how to create them, so I do have a bunch of shapes available. The other thing is try shaker covers. So a shaker cover, I thought I had one over here. It wraps around. So this kind of is like the step beyond what I did for the project where you're just putting it in a baggie. This is a piece of acetate.
Acetate.
Yep. And then you put a card panel behind it, or you just put a panel, and then you can fold these over and seal them up, and then you put your shaker pieces in there. And then you get...
We just had Debbie on just before you, and that's exactly the product that she used. But keep going, yeah, because it's good to see it now kind of in motion.
Yeah. So I wouldn't use this necessarily on a scrapbook layout. I mean, you certainly can. I have had people do make and takes that they do put on their scrapbook layouts, but it's a very easy way. It's like I said, it's the next step beyond the technique I showed in the presentation. Is the shaker covers.
Cool. Very good. Someone's going to try your thing on, they're just watching your video now, and she's going to try your scrapbooking page. I have a question about your freebie. So your freebie is my Craft Hub Notion template. I know what that is, but other people may not know what that is. So you want to give a little bit on your freebie? Like Tracy's like, what's Notion?
So Notion is a free, it's like a free app. So you access it. You can download it to your phone. I find it's easier to use on your computer.
Yes.
And so the hub is a way of gathering your inspiration. So you can just drop pictures in there. You can literally drop, grab images off of Pinterest and drop it in. You can do links to it. It has a couple different tabs on it. One of them is to put your calendar on there so that you know like what scrapbooking events you have coming up, whether it's the online summits, whether it's in person, craft days. So you can literally have your calendar, because I do know that people do plan out for the full year and plan quite a ways out. So you can have a calendar in there. You can have, like I said, it's a great source for all of your inspiration pictures. You can even take pictures of your projects and load it onto your Notion into the hub. And so that you always have your like little database of inspiration. I'm trying to think of what else there's on there. You can list like different links to supply sites that you like to go to. You can have the link to the summit on there. So it's just a good way it's just an online way to consolidate all of your scrapbooking notes and resources.
And there's a video to show you how to use it. Because if you don't know how to use Notion, you do kind of need to know how to use it. I find Notion for people, some of you will love it, and some of you will go, that doesn't work with my brain. And it's one of those things, because I see a Notion a lot in my space, and I've tried it and I haven't really jumped on board because it doesn't work with my brain, or I haven't managed to get my brain to work with it, I guess might be another way to put it. But try it out, because it can be a really helpful place. We had someone, one of ours, who used it to do their inventory.
Yep.
So they use their inventory in Notion instead of an Excel spreadsheet, because you can put the images in and you can do all that kind of thing. And so it's like Excel, it's like a spreadsheet on steroids, really.
Yeah, so I said that it's like Excel and Word had a baby, because you can put like documents in there. You can upload files. You can upload links to files. So it's like your own little database.
Yeah.
And Notion, it can be very overwhelming, but you can also keep it very simple.
It's one of those tools that's very powerful, but it's a bit intimidating. But having a video and showing them how to do it. So check it out, because that's a great database to have. Ellie's got to find some shaker pieces to do it with, so you can make your own shaker pieces, as we talked about. So she's going to make your page, but you can make your own shaker pieces and do stuff as well. So lots of ideas. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for coming in the summit and being part of this Scrapbooking Fun Summit. And love your page and love what you've given. So,
oh, thank you so much. And thanks for all of your work for putting this together. It's been a lot of fun.
Jessica, you've been great to work with. I could say that as well. So thank you. Seriously.
Yes.
And good luck with your new adventures. Want to see that as well.
Thanks. It was one of those things I've been thinking of. And then when my website blew up, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm doing it.
Does things like technology do move you in places you didn't think you were going to go sometimes?
Yeah, and it kind of gets you moving.
It does get you moving, so that's great and exciting to see it. Share it with us, and we can share it with, like, post it in the Facebook group when you have it. There's like 8,000 people in our Facebook these days, so
all right,
share that and do that. So thank you so much, and we are back in 15 minutes with Cindy from Dare to Be Artsy, who is yet another crafter from, I can't remember where she's from. Minnesota, Kentucky,
Kansas.
I knew it was going to come. I should
It's
know.
so weird. I've always think Ohio, but which really I know they're not right there, but Kansas.
And she actually has a physical store, so that are being less and less popular, less and less around these days. So
they are more rare.
Yeah. So she has really cool stuff, Dare to Be Artsy. So thank you so much for being with us. Thank you all for joining us live. We will be back in a little bit. Sorry for the downtime this morning. If you're watching the replay, throw a comment on here. If you have a question for Molly, you can post it in the Facebook group. You can put it on here, or you can send it to Tracy and she will pass it on. So thanks, everybody, and we will see you in about 15 minutes. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.